What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Rip City Real Talk. It's Craig Moshkow, Anthony Blaylock, your host for another round of Whoa, what the heck happened in Blazerland?
Hi, you sound so excited.
I am.
And you should be, because there's a lot of exciting stuff. We are excited to break it down. It's been a little while since the last episode. We wanted to do it last night, but we wanted to wait for the press conference. So we're going to break down some of our thoughts on that, some of the stuff we heard, what we think that means, etc. But before we do that, we want you all to take a moment, hit that sub button for us. Please do. Comment at the end of the video, comment throughout the video as you're watching it. Give us some stuff to talk about with you guys. We want to hit that 500 subs so we can give you guys free Blazers tickets. We'll do it. You know, it'll be below 300 levels. We're not made of money, but it's free for you. So, I mean, take advantage of it.
Right.
And we have some news we want to cover first. Like I said, it's been a while since our last pod, so some of this stuff might be a little dated for you, but, you know, we're still going to give you the content on it. And with that, I think I'll start off with the Quinn Cook signing. So another member has been added to the training camp. Another signing, non-guaranteed, competing for that potential 14th spot. Well, not potential 14th spot. It will be a 14th spot. It has to be when they get out of training camp. So now it's 4 guys: Chris, Patterson, Smith, and Cook. What do you think about Cook?
I like Cook. I mean, he's been on some really good teams. He's played for Golden State mostly for most of his career. He's a veteran. He's been around the league for a long time. I guess I didn't realize that. He is really short. He's only 6'1", and he doesn't do a lot that we don't already have. So I don't see him getting a lot of minutes. But I would be totally fine with Quinn Cook making the roster. He's another talented player that's been on winning teams. I felt totally fine about this training camp deal. And if he signed to the roster, I'd be fine with it too.
Yeah, I kind of like him as a backup guard. I think a bit more so than I liked Smith, just because I think Smith's too similar to Amp, and I think Cook's a truer point guard. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of assist numbers, but he hasn't played a lot of time.
Right.
I like to put it in there. I mean, he's played for Golden State for a few years with Curry and those guys. Went to the Lakers, so he's got some championships under his belt. That's impressive. Again, you can never have enough of that. Norman Powell was a big deal when we brought him in because ideally it helps you compete in playoffs, having some of those guys that have been on these teams and surrounded by these guys that have competed at that level. I like it. I think he's been efficient. I think his career average is like 46%. So being a smaller guard, that means he shoots well. You know, it's harder to drive to the basket and do those things when you're only 6'1", but being able to shoot and get up to 46% on your career is good. Other than that, it really just doesn't bring anything else that the other 3 guys, you know, don't bring. So I think he's going to give you the same type of thing. It's going to be a 14th roster spot guy that's probably not going to do much. But I like the experience that he has, and I like what he can bring to a locker room with that experience. We're going to talk a little bit more about Dame and some of those things that he was around with Team USA, and I think the same thing could be said about a guy like Cook, who's been on championship rosters and made multiple playoffs with a bunch of good players around him. So
yeah, he's learned from the best, right? I think I agree with that. And once again, I don't fault Neil for bringing talent into training camp. There's really no risk to it. And it's nice for guys, let's say there's an injury or something happens throughout the year. It's nice for guys to know our system and know what we're going to expect to run during the season, that you could just sign them off the street if you needed to, God forbid an injury does happen, right?
I think that's a great point. It's a point I haven't actually thought of, so I'll give you that. You know, having guys in camp that have been around your roster and played with the guys that's been on the team, that's awesome, because if you do have to use that 15th spot down the road, if it's not a buyout or something, or even if you get an exemption to bring a guy in because of injury, you now have 3 guys, assuming one of them gets signed, 3 guys that you can go in and say, hey, we need another big. Patterson, Chris, you're up. Come on. We need another guard. You know, Cook, Smith, you're up. So that's a great point. I think it's a point that I haven't even thought of myself, and I love that you brought that up, because it is a big deal when you have these guys.
It's like practice squad stuff. I think practice squad for NFL, where it's like something happens and you have a guy off the practice squad that already knows your roster and what you like to do. It's similar with the Blazers.
Kind of like the G League.
Yep, G League too. Same thing. But yeah, so I feel good about that. What else happened this week?
Well, speaking of G League and potential 2-way players, I think you brought it up today that we brought back Blevins. Kind of expected, I guess. Again, a guy knows the roster and knows the players and stuff like that.
Yep. Dame's cousin. I think he'll fit in at the end of the bench, and his chemistry, and he knows what's going on. So good deal. Keep Dame happy. Totally fine with it.
Yeah, and it was so cool when he hit his first 3. He was all excited last year. We were talking about it.
That's right.
But again, bottom level guy that
Yeah.
probably won't play ever again unless it's garbage time and he actually makes some kind of a roster move and he gets into the game. But I like it. I like bringing back guys who are familiar with the players and again, like you said, keep Dame happy. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really it for signings. Not too much going on. Again, camp just started today, actually, so they're just now getting in there. They're going to start doing some stuff. We're already getting reports about guys talking about Chauncey and how his coaching style is, and we're learning they're actually practicing defending the pick and roll today and how they plan on doing that. So Nurk and Dame have come out. Both of them are saying they love it. I'm sure they do. Everybody's going to say the right thing right now, of course. Right? I mean, it's practice. Everybody's itching to get back. It's a new coach. You're learning a new system, so I think everybody's pretty stoked for that. But the other bit of news that happened since our last pod, and we haven't stopped visiting this like all off season. It's been the only thing that we seem to be able to talk about at this point in the year. But Ben Simmons news came up sort of ish again. Stephen A. Smith comes out, says that we apparently were talking with the Sixers, or there's internal discussions. I don't believe the source, but he said CJ, Rocco, and picks for Ben Simmons, which is intriguing when you think about the roster and moving up a guy like Nance in the power forward. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know that I 100% believe that, and I'll just tell you why. He said we've had internal discussions around CJ and Rocco and picks, but the price on Simmons drops every single day. The longer he sits around and the more comments he makes about him not reporting to camp, the lower his value goes. So I'm not sure I 100% believe that. I don't think the Blazers are really seriously considering trading CJ plus things. I think they would do CJ for Simmons straight up, but I don't think they would add anything to the package. And it's just, I don't think I really believe that. I think what that is a BS report that Stephen A is putting out to try to get the wheels turning and grease the wheels between these two teams. Did you actually think that this is a real credible rumor?
No, I think it comes out because the newest odds, every time Ben Simmons comes up in the media, odds get released. They start talking about trading him again. We were at 54%, so we led the odds out of all teams to get Ben Simmons. So it comes up again. I get CJ for Ben Simmons. I do. I think Rocco's a lot for him. Not to mention, I don't know how Philly makes that contract work because they're taking on additional money. I mean, CJ's worth about the same as Ben Simmons, so trying to take back Rocco too. They're going to have to give somebody else back, and I don't really know who that would be at this time, personally. But, I mean, it does a couple things. So, as I stated, you probably put Ben Simmons in at your 3. You move Powell down to your shooting guard, and I'm assuming you bring Nance up to start at power forward instead of Rocco in that situation. That kind of hampers your bench a little bit. Now, it depends on what you bring back. Again, I mean, you're going to have that open roster spot if for some reason you did do a 2-for-1 on a player trade. But assuming you bring back a player, I imagine it would be a filler and power forward again because you're not going to rely on Greg Brown. And I just don't think Little's ready to take the power forward spot in big minutes. Nance was a perfect signing for the team on the bench because of what he brings. But moving him out and starting him now, you have a gap there with your bigs. Maybe you bring in Patterson and Chris, and they're your primary backup at power forward. I don't know. But it doesn't make a lot of sense for me from that standpoint. However, Nance doesn't take anything out of your rotation. In fact, he's probably a better fit than Rocco at the power forward. He can move the ball better. He's going to shoot about the same clip from 3. Probably just as good of a defender. They're both great help defenders, statistically wise. I don't think I said that right, but statistically speaking,
no, I get it.
Nance gives you a lot of the same things that Rocco can give. You don't lose that much. I think Rocco is a better 3-and-D player overall, and he's definitely not as big of an injury risk, but you don't lose a lot there. And you add Simmons, you add height, and you add an elite wing defender to your starting lineup at the 3 position to get out there and guard wings. Also allows Powell to take on some of the better guards instead of CJ or Dame. He can now slide down, take the team's best guard on defense without really having the transition, because right now he's probably still guarding the best wings out there, him and Rocco combined, and he's not going to be able to play a lot of defense on guards. That was half the problem with Denver, is he was stuck on Porter the entire time, which is fine, but then Denver's guards like Morris and Rivers kind of slayed CJ, and it was a problem. So that worries me if you were to pull the trigger on a trade like that.
Sure, I totally get that.
You don't really give up a lot of defense, but you give up in a
tons of offense,
bench flexibility, in my opinion. And I mean, you're probably going to give up a little bit of offense on the starting unit as well.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about this trade, in my mind, it's just sort of clicking. There's no reason for the Blazers to do this until they've seen what the system Chauncey is going to instill on defense. And what I mean by that is if we can be a top 5 offense and then we can be a serviceable defense. So let's say Chauncey unlocks this system for us this year where we're like a 14th or 15th in the NBA defense. That's good enough. If you trade CJ before the season even starts and you don't even give Chauncey a chance to integrate something into the defense, we don't know what this team can do. And I'm as much convinced of any fan is that this team can't defend. I really truly believe that it's in the DNA of our guards, but I would like to give Chauncey the benefit of the doubt and see if he can do something with these guys before we make a trade. And Simmons' value drops every single day. I don't understand why the Blazers would pay CJ and Rocco right now when they could wait 2 months into the season. And if he's pulling a Harden where he's dogging it and he's not showing up every single night and he's becoming a chemistry problem for your team, you have to trade him. So the Blazers have everything on their side to wait, and there's really no reason to pull the trigger sooner. Is that wrong? Or are you feeling different?
No, absolutely not, because I don't think Ben Simmons wants to come here, and I think he is going to be a locker room issue. As good as a leader as Dame is, and I think playing for Chauncey makes a big deal, sure. But Doc Rivers has been a player's coach for a majority of his career. A lot of guys like to play for him. And I think it's, if he can't right the ship with Ben Simmons and guys like Embiid and Tobias Harris, and those guys can't right the ship, which I don't believe them to be good leaders in any sense, not nearly as good as Dame. I just feel like you get rid of continuity for a guy who doesn't want to be here. Now doesn't have a lot of choice because Blazers wouldn't give up assets and then turn around and trade him. He's locked under contract for a while now. So it's kind of like you're going to have to deal with it or else, because we're not going to move you again. Hold out, lose your money, sure. It becomes a problem, and it's a problem that I think you can avoid if you don't do it. And especially, like you said, this close to the season, you're already going into camp now. You kind of have an idea of what the roster looks like. Chauncey likes the roster. He's already building plans around the roster.
Right.
I just don't see it happening. And honestly, I don't think Ben Simmons is coming here. I think there's other moves being made right now. I think the Rockets are intriguing. They've already talked about a John Wall potential Ben Simmons move there to swap. And honestly, Timberwolves, they fired their president of basketball operations. The new guy said he's going to do everything in his power to bring Ben Simmons to Minnesota. That probably means D'Angelo Russell becomes a trade piece for them. Salaries are going to be close. You might throw in some other pick or a younger player. And honestly, Ben Simmons, along with Cat and Anthony Edwards, is a pretty intriguing three that I think they can pull off. And then the Sixers are still going to get the guard that they want. And honestly, Russell's probably just as good as CJ. Sorry to say it, but scoring-wise, everything that he can do offensively is not too different than what CJ is going to bring. And that's what Philly's looking for anyway, somebody who can create their own shot and score. I think you heard it here first on Rip City Real Talk. Maybe not. I don't know. but I think you're going to see that move in the next couple of weeks. I really think Minnesota is going to go balls to the wall to get him. And that's going to be the end of this Ben Simmons Blazers conversation. Quite frankly, I'm ready for that.
Yeah, I think it's almost over. I do think that if I had to guess, it's going to happen in the season, and I think it could be a 3-team trade. I really think it could be a team like the Spurs that gets involved, that pitches a bunch of assets to somebody else who takes Ben. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I have my suspicions, and I don't think the Blazers are involved. And a lot of that we will talk about in the next segment when we talk about Media Day, because it sounds like, and we'll talk about Media Day as we go here, but it sounds like the Blazers are pretty invested in what we have here in-house.
Correct. Yep, exactly. I agree with you. And when we get to that, we'll explain why we think that. But 100% agree with you there. That's really all I have to say in the Ben Simmons stuff. I'm sure next week there'll be some new Ben Simmons rumor for the Blazers that'll come out. We'll have to retouch this again. I'm getting sick of it. I think a lot of people are getting sick of it. I don't think it's going to happen, but we're going to keep being involved in rumors. You're going to keep seeing odds be Blazers one of the top teams because everybody thinks we need that fit. Maybe we do, but I agree. I don't see it happening. So done with the Ben Simmons stuff. I'm going to call an audible. All right. I'm going to call an audible. And guess what audible I'm going to call?
Omaha.
No, definitely not Omaha. That's great, though. I'm going to call Damian Lillard, and I'm going to throw deep. Yes. Why don't you tell everybody why that's so special to you?
Yeah, so I was actually checking Twitter on Sunday. I didn't get to watch the Raiders game, but I saw on Twitter that the Derek Carr and the Raiders used Damian Lillard as an audible. So he goes, he goes up to the line of scrimmage. He goes, Damian Lillard. And then it was actually a deep shot. So it ended up being, of course it was a deep shot, because who's the best 3-point deep shooter in the league? It's Dame Lillard. So it was kind of a sick thing. And then they used James Harden in another one, but I think James Harden was actually because they got fouled. I think Derek Carr got fouled.
The guy flopped and tried to call for pass interference.
That was the James Harden.
You fall down and say pass interference. Just put your hand up like you're confused when you fall. That's right. The James Harden audible.
But the Dame Lillard audible was pretty dope, and I applaud Gruden and Carr and whoever came up with that idea, because I think that's an amazing audible. When you're calling a deep shot, go the Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I don't think people know that about you, that you're a big Raiders fan. I'm a huge Packers fan, so I had a good win on Sunday. It was nerve-wracking, no different than Dame hitting a little different than Dame hitting a game winner. But it was like a regular season game winner. It felt like that. It was pretty intense. I threw my cheese head down. It bounced around the house. I scared the cats, and then all of a sudden they went around with 37 seconds to win the game. So, yeah, that was good wins for both of us, but the Raiders did it, calling out Damian Lillard. How is that for some he's national praise, huh?
And he's an Oakland guy. I mean, so you pay tribute to the Oakland roots. I mean, it's a double whammy. Plus, Dame is a huge Raiders fan, and so it's really cool because I like to follow him and I like to watch him on socials, and he's always calling out when Derek Carr and the Raiders are doing good. So he's the man. I mean, Dame is literally the man when it comes to Oakland, and Oakland is where the Raiders will always be from, in my opinion.
No, I thought that was a cool bit of news to share. A lot of people probably didn't catch that at all. I didn't really see it anywhere outside of when it happened, so that was pretty neat. And that's really it for small news. I don't really have a lot else going on with the Blazers this week. Blevins, Cook, the Ben Simmons rumors again.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I really have to discuss with that. So we'll do this a little early today.
Let's do it.
Yeah, do a little early today because it's always our transition piece. Everybody's favorite segment here on Rip City Real Talk. I know you all love to hear about ex-players, where they're going, what they're doing now. So this week's Blazing New Trails ex-player of the week was the representation of our what if, which we'll do again eventually, but our what if, and it was Greg Oden, sir.
Oh, what?
Greg Oden. So a couple different bits of news for good old Greg Oden these days. People wonder what happened to him. Yeah, he's not the one on the right, unfortunately. If you he's the one that got the Blazers uniform, the one that went number 1 overall, not number 2, and won multiple championships. So Greg Oden these days became in May. He became the captain. He's the captain of a basketball team.
What?
Yeah, the captain of a basketball team called the Aliens, which seems fitting. And he's the captain of the Aliens in the Big Three. So if anybody's not quite sure what that is, it's basically a 3-on-3 league where a lot of old aging vets kind of play in it. There's some other guys that, just younger that kind of get mixed in, but it's ran by a lot of cool people. Actually, Clyde Drexler is one of the people that runs the Big Three. So it's kind of cool. I get a chance to check out highlights every once in a while. They've had quite a few people on there. But Greg Oden is a big member of the Aliens. He's the captain of that team. Also, a cool bit of news is he is a graduate student coach at Ohio State. So he's actually going to be part of the Ohio State college basketball team as a coach now. So he's going back to the old roots there at Ohio State and coaching them. So he's still involved, which is pretty cool. I think a lot of people just kind of thought he just disappeared into the world. He had that brief stint with Miami. He was with us from 2008, 2009 when we drafted him. But
yeah,
there he is. So he's the captain of a basketball team, still playing basketball, just not unfortunately with the Blazers. I know, right?
Well, yeah, I feel like I saw him in a Big Three thing recently and was like, "What is Greg Oden still playing?" And his poor knee. I mean, it's one of the biggest what ifs in Blazer history. I mean, you want to talk about Durant, you can, but if Oden stays healthy, I think we compared him 2 or 3 pods ago to DeAndre Ayton. If you watched Ayton last year, it's just a rim running, shot blocking, unbelievable center. That was Greg Oden. And so hopefully he can teach people about what it means to be a pro, because his poor health, it crushed his career, but he could have been fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, like we talked about Roy Aldridge, like that would have been a pretty awesome three tangent man to roll with. But either way, he's doing it with another Big Three. So that's the news on old Oden, in case you guys were curious what happened to him. A lot of the young guys that follow us, probably don't even know who Greg Oden is. I hope you do. I'm sure you do, but
they have to, right?
That's what he's doing. So that's the Greg Oden news, and that's about it, man. I'm ready to roll into press conference stuff because that's what everybody's waiting to hear. That's the big thing. Media day was yesterday. All the interviews, all the fun, all the comments. We have a lot to discuss, and I don't know who you want to start with. I guess it doesn't matter. I kind of felt like we'd start with Neil and work our way from there, huh?
Yeah, you got to start your way down with Neil O'Shea, and I thought it was a pretty good press conference for Neil. I thought after a tumultuous offseason, I really did. I mean, I thought in listening to him, he took some accountability for some of the stuff that's happened this year. He explained why he picked Chauncey, which is something I've been waiting for all offseason. Sometimes it felt like Chauncey got hired just because he and Neil had a prior relationship, but he really chose him because Chauncey is this leader who draws people in through his natural magnetism as a leader. I thought that was really well explained, and I thought he did a nice job of saying Chauncey can bring people in not only into his system, but he brings players who want to come play for the Blazers. I thought that was really cool. One of his best press conferences of the offseason. I do wish he would have spent more time talking about the Dame stuff, and I found that a little contrite when he said, "Oh yeah, me and Dame, we talk all the time, and we're like BFFs." And just because it was public this year, that was a little weird. I thought he kind of threw Dame under the bus a little bit with those comments because I don't think any of that's true, but that's kind of just GM speak to me. I sort of just put the grain of salt on that. What did you think of the Neil O'Shea presser? Because it sounds like you disagree with me.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I mean, I thought it was kind of his normal thing. I think he was a little dodgy on some stuff. Again, sold. He does what Neil does, and he sells everything he does to be great, which is fine. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. So a couple of things that I took away, and we can kind of talk about him. The first thing I took away is that he says this is the deepest bench he thinks he's had. And I've heard comments like this from a couple other people on Twitter and some other avenues. So the deepest bench Portland has. Now, listen.
I disagree.
I can see it being the deepest bench in terms of veteran presence.
Sure.
We haven't had vets like this, like the McLemores and the Schnells and the Zellers of the world. We haven't really had a lot of the guys, and then you talk about the guys that you're bringing in are all vets. We've already given him praise for that, but that's what he's saying. Now,
yeah,
it depends on what your definition of deep is, right? I mean, that depends on what. So his definition of deep was essentially that if guys get hurt or get in foul trouble, whatever, he feels confident that any of these guys can come in, play in the Chauncey system right off the bat, and be productive and do exactly what they want with the minutes that they're given. Okay. Or he doesn't really feel like maybe he's had that before. Some of the younger guys, which really is a learning curve for Little and Anthony throughout the last couple of years, and now he feels like you can put anybody out there and that they're pros and they're vets and they're going to be able to just fit right in and you're just not going to lose a step. That's what he says he means by it. What do you take away from the deep bench comment?
Well, so I do agree with him. Yes, this is the deepest veteran bench we've ever had because you won't have a single rookie or young guy playing meaningful minutes. Ant's in his third or fourth year now. He's really developing to a point where he should probably be able to play 20 to 25 NBA minutes and not get played off the floor. Zeller, Snell, Ben McLemore, they mentioned all of them in the presser as if these guys were great veterans. They'll be able to play for sure. They've been around the league for 5-6 years. That doesn't mean they're going to be high caliber players. I thought 2019's bench, I thought Seth, ET, I thought that bench was a better overall bench. I think that was the deepest team. And last year, you and I were lauding over the Blazers bench. We were saying this is one of the deepest teams because we can bring Melo Cantor in. Like, let's not pat ourselves on the back in the offseason and say we've done a great job until we get over that hump and we actually win 50-plus games or we actually win a first-round series. Like, let's wait a little bit to say this is the deepest bench we've ever had. That was the only thing that rubbed me the wrong way from Neil.
I think Nance helps for sure. Mm-hmm. Nance makes you have a guy that if he can stay healthy is a legitimate starter on most teams. Not an all-star caliber player probably, but a legitimate starter easily on most teams.
Yeah.
Weller's started on multiple teams, has a ton of experience. I mean, the thing that worries me when you say deep is I look kind of position to position to position and what the guys are going to be able to do. That's kind of where I look at my depth and I talk about being deep. Big's not great. I mean, good if healthy. Zeller and Nance by far better than Melo.
Not reliable.
100% better than those guys. You don't have the scoring that you had with Melo. You don't have a guy that can take a guy one-on-one, hit a shot, be pretty reliant with it, or shoot the three like him. But Nance does everything else, and that's he plays defense. He passes. He's still going to be a viable scorer. And Zeller, again, he's not going to go out there and block a bunch of shots. He said himself he's not going to go out there and block a bunch of shots. That's not his game.
Yeah.
but he's athletic enough to be able to defend the pick and roll, and that's great. But we talked about this already. Both those guys are injury prone, and that's what worries me. With Nurk's injury concerns and foul trouble, which we brought up 100 times on the pod, you have a backup now in Zeller and Nance, who, again, hasn't been able to play a full complement in games and years. Where do you go from there? When you talk about the deepest bench, and not a lot of teams are this deep, and I get that. But now you're talking potentially Patrick Patterson, Marquise Chris, Greg Brown, which I said right for, I think, the first time since we started bringing up his name.
Greg Brown.
Well, which is fine. I mean, Chris is an energy guy. We've already talked about him. Patterson's a pro's pro. He's going to come in and do what he does best, and that's great. I just don't, outside of Nance, I just don't know where you talk about deep at the big man position.
What I think he meant when he said this is the deepest bench we've ever had. This is the most seamlessly transitioning bench we've ever had. And what I mean is what Nurkic does well, Zeller and Nance can also do well from a big standpoint.
Absolutely.
It is pass, it's play make, it's be semi-agile with your feet and be able to close on defenders and hedge on screens. I think, to me, this is the most seamless rotation. You're going to bring Anf in off the bench, and he's going to be another combo guard, just like Dame and CJ. What I think he meant when Neil Osei said this is the deepest team we've ever had, we don't have a ET coming off the bench, and you have to completely retool the offense for ET because he's a pass first point forward. We don't have Melo coming off the bench, who's pretty much just an ISO scorer. We don't have Cantor coming off the bench, who's limited defensively. I think this is the most versatile bench the Blazers have ever had. I think it'll be the most seamlessly transitioning bench. When one of them comes off of the bench, you're not going to have to change the whole system. They all play within Chauncey's system. Does that make more sense? Or
it does. And I have to look at it. I have to look at it in the state that you're not going to get hurt. I mean, there's always going to be injuries, but if you look at this team just on paper right off the bat, injuries aside, I do think it's a deep bench. I agree with you. I think I like guys like Seth Curry a little bit more, Evan Turner, Rodney Hood.
Sure.
I liked that 2019 team because of the versatility that we had on that team. We kind of let all those guys go. I mean, honestly, I liked Myers Leonard as a backup big. I thought he could do different things in the offense. Rest in peace to his career. But I mean, I'll give you that. I think, and that's where I can agree with it. I do think that you can bring in a McLemore and a Schnell, and either one of those guys are interchangeable. If you need a shooter, you can put him out there.
Yeah.
A lot's going to rely on some other things with this team, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But that's the first thing with the Neil Presser I kind of wanted to discuss with you. The second little bit here is he says that Chauncey helped him lure free agents here. Now, we talked about this being a deep bench, so I think this kind of goes hand in hand with that. But how much do you think Chauncey sways all this great talent like Ben McLemore and Tony Snell that you brought here?
Yeah, if Cody Zeller and Tony Snell are your like A+ signings, that's a nice offseason. I think that was just fluff. I think it was just something to add. Like, people want to come play for Chauncey, right? Oh, they really want to come play for Chauncey. I think it's just fluff. I don't believe it. I think if we would have got a guy like, let's say, Malik Monk, and Malik Monk signed for a veteran minimum in Portland, okay, I would believe he came to play for Chauncey because he's young and wants to develop into a guard. But when you're talking about Cody Zeller and Tony Snell, no, I don't believe that that's a life-changing signing the way that the LA Lakers signed 4 guys to minimum deals who could help you swing a championship run. I thought that was fluff, and that's fine. I don't care. It's a used car salesman line to me. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, people need to remember Nance wasn't a free agent signing, so don't rope him into that. Right. I mean, yeah, Zeller, sure. That minimum for him, he probably could have made a little bit more playing somewhere else, but his injuries really brought his price value down. McLemore hasn't been able to survive on a roster in years. Houston, Lakers, he can't. With as good of a shooter as he apparently is, you think that more teams will be able to use him? No, he's a vet minimum guy. And same with Snell. I mean, you talk about a guy who's really just a shooter. Okay, sure, he can hit the 3 at a very good rate. Nobody else wanted him. He's been on rosters. He hasn't gotten playing time. So, I mean, let's not act like these are big market signings. You're talking, like, sure, this is like a 2006 Subaru Outback. Like, it's reliable. You can use it. It's a great part, sure. But we're not talking about, WRX or whatever else Subaru has. I try to do a Subaru thing, and I'm not a car guy. I'm way out of my element with that. But
if you're going to say Chauncey's luring people, I think Dame is luring these people. I think the allure of playing with an MVP level candidate in a team that we know, Larry Nance said in his media day thing, this is a a perennial playoff team. I came here to make the playoffs. I think that to me is more impactful playing with Dame and CJ than playing for Chauncey Billups. So no, I don't give that a lot of credence, but I'm totally down to move on to Chauncey if you are.
Well, I got one last thing with Neil. It really was 3 things that I wrote down, but they're all in line with the same thing. And I think this is a big deal. Okay. And this is probably the biggest thing I took away from this. All 3 of these things. So I'm going to say all 3 of these things, and then we'll loop them up together and we'll go from there. So exhausted all ops to improve the team. All opportunities. He says he exhausted every opportunity he had to improve the team, and Dame knows that.
Sure.
Before you say anything, he's never going to trade Dame. That they listened to rumors. They basically said no. He used a restaurant reservation metaphor as an example that you call a restaurant on a reservation knowing they're going to say no, and that's what all GMs do.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've been very successful with both guards. That this has been one of the best teams. We've been to playoffs year after year. That both guards, he's going to keep running it back. We've been extremely successful with the 2 of them. We have the best backcourt in all of the league. So all these things together, we talked about it a little bit with the Ben Simmons trade. That, we didn't move CJ. Speaking of no opportunities, I feel like there's an opportunity there, and you didn't want to move CJ. Maybe Philly doesn't want it, sure, but CJ could have easily been moved for other assets that probably would have improved the team. Never going to move Dame. Don't believe that. If Dame gets unhappy and Dame says he wants out, it kind of forces you to do that. Yep. Now, he did kind of say as long as Dame is happy and he thinks Dame is happy, and that's fine. But if Dame wants out and it becomes an issue there, you're moving Dame. Mm-hmm. And then successful with both guards, yes and no, right? Like we have made the playoffs in, 9 straight years. And we've got one finals or Western Conference finals appearance out of it, and that's about it.
Yep.
After year of disappointment. So really the 2 guards have not been that great together. We've talked about it multiple times. So all that kind of goes in together with essentially saying that these 2 guards are it, that we like the 2 guards playing together. We're not moving either of them. All 3 of those things kind of rope that in together. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're fluffing Damian Lillard's pillow again. I think you're saying we're never going to trade Dame unless he absolutely demands it. I don't think there's any reason to ever say, yeah, we would be open to offers. So that to me makes sense. The CJ thing, I think, is just, I honestly believe Neil thinks we've been successful with Dame and CJ. I think he believes that we are a championship contender in his heart of hearts because he drafted CJ. I do think he believes that. Whether we believe that as fans, no, not at all. I think we need to be a better defensive team, but he believes changing the coach is enough. So I believe the Damian Lillard stuff. I don't believe the other stuff about the guards. I do think he's done a fantastic job of building this team this year. I think we're going to be good. I don't think he explored CJ trades, and I don't think he even listened to a single CJ trade. I know for a fact that Ben Simmons for CJ would have to be some workable deal, and Neil did not explore that this offseason. There's no way he was even considering it until now when Ben's got a depressed value. So I don't know, man. I believe half that stuff. I don't believe the other stuff. I think that Neil is always going to be a used car salesman. He's always going to say he's done the best job anyone's ever done. And he's going to stick to his guns because he believes that in his heart of hearts.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe it too. I mean, we've seen the song today. Now you can say what you want about Stotts and the Stotts system and all of that nonsense. Well, we were still a ridiculously good offense, and we're still going to be a good offense. Chauncey's not. I mean, he might make us a little bit better, but offense isn't the problem. Moving the ball is great and all that. We'll talk about that in a sec. But Dame and CJ, just neither one can defend at a high level. And if they're going to defend at a high level, then they're going to give up defense, regardless of what Dame came out and said recently about, I'm only not playing good defense because I have to expend so much energy on offense, and Billups is going to change that. No, he's not. No, he's not, because you're still going to have to put up 30 points a game, 25 to 30 a game to keep the team in contention, because you're not going to get scoring outside of you and CJ. And CJ, we know what CJ is going to do. Yeah, he put up nearly 26 a game last year, but he still couldn't stop anybody. So anyway, it's stressful because when we talk about Ben Simmons trade not happening, this is why, because Neil is content with these guards. He wants to keep using these guards. We'll see as the year goes on.
What do you think of Chauncey's comments? So go through Chauncey. What did you like about what he said at Media Day, and what did you not like? Or was there anything that was like, no, that doesn't make sense to me?
Sure. Go for it. So what I like and dislike is essentially the exact same thing, which is kind of weird. But he said that he's not a guru by any means, but he knows how to win. Yeah. And he kept saying, we'll see. Now, I like this because it's honest. I think he comes in and says, "Hey, I haven't been a coach. It's my first time coaching. I have very little coaching experience. I am by no means going to be a guru, but I know how to win." He's like, "I know how to win. I've been in this league as a player. I know how to dissect. I know how to get guys to be motivated, etc., etc." We'll see. The bad thing about that is obviously the lack of experience, and he's not. To me, that doesn't scream confidence. It screams, I think I'm going to do a good job. I hope I do a good job. Yeah. But if I don't, it's because, I don't have the experience right now, so bear with me. Okay. I already think we're going to struggle in year one anyway. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll get into the playoffs. I mean, you have a superstar on your team. You're probably going to get into the playoffs. I still think we're a first round, maybe second round exit until things really start to click, whether we move CJ and get a better defensive unit around Dame, or unless Chauncey really just takes a big step in year two. Great. But that to me was interesting. Now, I love the honesty. His entire press conference seemed very laid back. I didn't see a lot of, as you put it, fluff. At least not in very many avenues. I mean, there was always a couple of things that he, kind of had to dance around a little bit, I'm sure. But that I really, really liked. And the fact that he kind of brought up Brooks as a reason for that. He said, I went out and got love my coaching staff. I got in Brooks to be here because he is a head coach. He's had playoff experience. He's had finals experience. I'm going to rely on him for a lot. He came out and said that, for time management, for depth perception on the roster, when to bring a guy in. I don't know why I said depth perception, but to look at the roster, when to rotate. He's going to key in a lot on what Brooks is going to give to them. I like that he's being honest about that. I think he might rely on it a little bit too much. So I really hope he can kind of control the game as a coach and not rely too much on his assistants. I want him to use his assistants, sure, but I also want, he was brought in to be the game changer here, and I really want him to be able to put his own stamp on things and not rely too much on that. But I think it's great that he's willing to admit that early on, and admit that he's going to use these guys and their experience to help guide him throughout the season.
Yeah, I agreed. I thought the honesty was really refreshing. You don't hear that much from NBA coaches in general. I thought that was I believed everything he said, which is unlike Neil O'Shea. The thing about O'Shea is I don't believe a word he says. With Chauncey, I believed everything he said. He said he was going to be honest, hold them accountable, be transparent. He definitely dealt with his shortcomings in that. He said, I'm not super experienced. I'm not going to pretend like I know everything there is to know. I will call people out for not doing their job, and that includes myself. I loved what he said. I thought he was a good leader, and I do trust and believe that he is going to hold guys accountable. He talked about putting an address on it, and I think that's one of the things that will stand up from the hold. Every person who listens or reads a quote from this will hear that, put an address on it. Basically in film, he's going to call people out. If Dame, CJ, if Nurk, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. If they miss their defensive assignment, if they die on a screen, they don't give effort, whatever it may be, I think that could help this team. And I do think that's something that Stotts did not do a good enough job of. And I know that gets really exhausting because he was 9 years and he made the playoffs and he was really good. And a lot of people criticized him last year and said he should be fired. I do think he lacked accountability on the defensive end. And if we can get a little bit better on that end, and Chauncey has plans for both ends of the floor, it sounds like, but I liked hearing that. And I liked hearing that he was going to hold these guys accountable. Did you agree with that? Or were you kind of like, meh, whatever?
Well, let me tell you, man, accountability has been the word of the day the last few days. It's all I see everywhere. People talking about the accountability. So he brought up in his press conference when, you're in a timeout, and he's talking about how when he was a player, the coach would say certain things like, we need to stop the ball. That's basically all he said. And to me, it's like, okay, so obviously, right? It's like playing football, and it's like you either have to throw or pass. Like, what? Duh, you have to stop the ball in defense. We have to stop movement. We have to put pressure on them. I mean, they're all very generic responses.
Generic things, yeah.
And that I admit he's not going to come out and talk about schemes and stuff in a press conference like this. But at the same time, it's like, so you keep saying accountability, and it's really just you need to do better. Yeah, obviously, if they're scoring on you, you need to do better. Right. So I'm a little concerned about this accountability word, because accountability, there's a word inside of accountability that really drives what this team is going to be, and that's ability. And I still don't know if we're going to have the ability to really slow guys down the way he wants. I understand what they want to do with Nurk and the pick and roll defense, and using Nurk up higher and all these good things, and that's wonderful. But the guards can't stop people. If they're getting beat, if they're getting destroyed on screens, I don't care what scheme you have. Guys are going to be out of position. You're going to have to sink into the middle to help out. We watched, stats aside, we watched CJ and Dame get destroyed by Monty Morris and Austin Rivers over and over. You think they're going to stop Chris Paul and Booker? You think they're going to slow down Westbrook, Donovan Mitchell? Like these top guards, I really hope he hasn't a way to stop that. I do.
Yeah.
But, little things like, we need to do better. You need to slow the ball down. Again, it's a press conference on media day, so I'm not going to read too much into it yet. We'll see as the season unfolds.
We'll see.
That worries me. But speaking of some of the other stuff, I'm kind of curious of what your thought is and how he's going to use the players and some of the things he did actually talk about.
Yes.
Especially on the offensive side. A couple cool things that I caught in that. What'd you think?
So I heard something about like Dame and CJ might have to lower their points per game by 20 by 2 points each or something.
By 20.
Well, go from 24 points per game to 22 or whatever. I basically surmise that he is going to try to move the ball more. He wants us to move the ball more on offense. What he thinks will happen is we will pass better, we will have more efficient offense, and everyone will have more energy to devote to the defensive end. Basically, Dame and CJ should not be dying on screens every time they have to defend Facu Campazzo or Austin Rivers.
What'd you just say?
Facu Campazzo?
How dare you say that to me? No, keep going.
So basically, like, we shouldn't have to have these two leaders die on screens defensively because they're not putting everything into the offensive end. ISO scoring. He wants Nurk to handle the ball more. I think he wants Nurk and Zeller to pass more out of the post. And I think he just wants the ball to move more in general. I don't disagree with that at all. I just think that Dame and CJ primarily ISO score. If you go watch highlights from last year of our best games, Dame and CJ are cooking themselves. Usually they're not dishing to other players. They're not creating playmaking for others. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. I don't think that's a short-term fix. What did you think of that?
No, I agree. And one of the things I took away is that he, wants more passing. And I started to think about that a little bit. The bench I can see being more fluent and more movement, because I think the bench has guys like Anthony and Little that are going to be able to cut a little bit more. McLemore is going to keep people honest. Mm-hmm. And then obviously with what the athleticism that Nance brings, his passing ability, I think you'll see a lot there. The starters, it's harder for me. Now, it's ironic that we talk about the defense transitioning to offense and back and forth, and the offense is going to give you more energy on defense. Well, if you're passing more, that's only effective if guys are moving more, because you can't just pass the guys who are standing still. I mean, you can pass around the rim and do that kind of thing, but really that's going to be more fluent if guys are moving more, cutting to the rim. Mm-hmm. So he talks about Nurk specifically wanting to play more in the box and doing more of his post-up game and being able to facilitate from the top of the key a little bit more than he has been previously, which he's already shown he can do, and he can do very well. We've seen a lot of cuts from Dame, and that's fine when it's happening once in a while, but the energy that I think that's going to use, I mean, it's going to depend on CJ and Dame and how they buy into it and what kind of level of execution we see. But I think for the ball to move more than it has in previous years, you're going to have to see more movement. And that's great. But I don't want to hear this it's going to save energy for defense, because it's not. I mean, you're going to have these guys more involved to transition your offense to more of a ball movement offense, which, quite frankly, the offense hasn't been an issue anyway. So I'm not really sure why this ball movement thing is some big revelation. Like, sure, we can move around a bit more, but
we'll see.
I just worry about what it's going to do to the defense. I do love how he called out the ISO scoring. He did say that he doesn't want Dame and CJ to ISO as much, which I like, because I think that will get other guys involved. I mean, Rocco's not going to cut to the rim and slash and do other stuff, but I do think they can use Norm in a bit more of a creative manner. I mean, he's obviously best suited to shoot a corner three, but he can attack the rim, and he can attack the rim 10 times better than CJ can. So if I'm really looking for a guy in this movement to be a factor, to really counteract my last point and really prove me wrong, I would love to see a little bit more of Norm, sitting out in the corner and then cutting to the rim last minute, Nurk hitting them, or him kind of rolling around on a screen, them hitting him with the pass when he has an open lane and let him go up and try to draw a foul. That's what I want to see.
We'll see. I mean, I agree with you on the offensive end is not the problem. Chauncey thinks that it will lead to better defense. That's fine. I didn't have a whole lot else from Chauncey. I thought that what he said made sense. I thought I agreed with it, and I thought it was really honest. Other than that, I felt good about what he said. Anything else you wanted to pull out from that?
Just the Nurk stuff. I'm really excited to see how he's going to use Nurk. He talked about slowing him down. He said he forced a lot of shots. He said that he's a little too quick with his shots because of what he was trying to do. You and I have talked about that for years, that really Nurk just shoots too fast, and he'd be so much more efficient if he would slow down a little bit. And he specifically pointed out that he wants to get Nurk's field goal percentage in the paint up, that he wants him to slow down. He thinks by giving him more touches and slowing the game down and actually running the offense through him is going to help with that. I love that. I'm a big Nurk guy, right? I think that you can really run your offense through Nurk and allow Dame and CJ to move around and get better looks versus having them have to have the ball in their hands all the time. If we are going to be a more movement-based team, I think it starts there. It doesn't start with Dame and CJ passing the ball more. It really starts with Nurk passing the ball more. I mean, how many awesome passes did we see from him last year? So really doing that, controlling him in the paint and utilizing him a bit more. It's one of the bigger takeaways from what Chauncey plans on using this team and how he wants to use this roster. So I really like that. I didn't have a lot of other things on him other than that. Just kind of excited to see how he's going to transition. But I did love the honesty and the examples, specific examples of how he wants to use specific players.
Yeah.
And how he wants to actually change what they were doing, because that's the one thing that you and me are still skeptical that we can actually do.
We'll see. I mean, we're as hopeful as anybody that he can pull that together. But we also think that these players are what they are. I mean, we saw Dame in the Olympics. We know what he can bring defensively. We know at times he can get played off the floor, and even playing for the best coaches of all time in Pop and Kerr, that Dame may not improve defensively just because you say you want him to, or you're going to call him out with his accountability. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I felt good. There was nothing really from Dame and CJ that I learned. I didn't take anything away. I mean, obviously Dame is committed to Portland, and that's what he said. And that's what he's going to say, because I feel like that's how he's felt lately. I didn't have anything big on the Dame stuff. I thought Nurk had some really big comments to talk about as far as coaching goes. Did you want to hit on that?
Yeah, we can start with Nurk. I do have a couple things about Dame that I was kind of intrigued about, but mainly it was just capping a lot of the offseason stuff. We'll get back to Dame. What did you hear from Nurk that you're most interested in? I know that we talked about how Chauncey wants to use him, and he seems really thrilled about that.
Yeah, I think Chauncey wants to use him, and Nurk sounds like he's bought in a way I've never heard Nurk sound. He sounds excited, and he said something about, like, I really think that I'm going to be this focal point. This is the role I'm going to play on this team. And I just felt good about that. I thought Nurk did a good job explaining, like, this is my role. What did you think?
I agree. I think he's been disappointed the last couple of years. Part of that to me is his fault. I mean, not his fault, but the injuries aren't his fault, but the foul trouble's really limited what they can do with him. The more he puts into the game and the more touches he gets, the more involved on defense he gets, the more scared I get that he's going to get more foul trouble, because he's a very passionate, energetic guy. But I do love that he's buying into the scheme already. I think everybody was frustrated after the loss in the playoffs. I don't really take any of the comments that was said at that point with too much sincerity, but I do think that he is looking forward to touching the ball more, being more of a facilitator. I heard him say that more often than not, that he's looking forward to being a facilitator almost more than anything, because I think for him, he knows that means the ball is going to be in his hand. And when the balls are in his hands, they can actually do different things with him passing it and cutting to the rim and getting a lob, or with him being able to take a guy in the post and really slowing things down. They're going to use him to facilitate more, which is going to open up more offense for him. And I think that is great to see him excited for. Does that make sense? So
it makes sense. I guess my concern with Nurk is, like, we've heard this in the past, and sometimes with players, they say, oh, I'm really excited about my new role, but they don't step into that new role and actually deliver within it. So I guess my thing for Nurk is, like, you can say all the right things, but when you get on the court and you have to do the things that Chauncey's asking you to do, which is be unselfish, pass more, we need Nurk to stay healthy. If Nurkic and Zeller don't stay healthy, or Nance, whatever it may be. And I think I saw a lot of comments on the Nurk video. It was like, please just stay healthy and you'll be a game changer for us. And it's like, I understand that's not his choice, but we need a healthy Nurkic, because without him, we're going to struggle this year, and we're going to struggle in general. So I think he's saying all the right things, and I'm glad he's excited, but it's time to step up and deliver. And if you want to be that guy, we need you night in and night out, not just every other night or every night you decide to get your energy up. I think Nurkic fever, he was fantastic for weeks on end, but the last few years he's had a hard time sustaining that momentum. So I I love what Nurk is saying. I just want to see it improve it this year.
Yeah, the fouls are the biggest thing still for him, in my opinion. Like the injuries are one thing, but he was perfectly fine in that Denver series. He was healthy. He wasn't hurt. He was just fouling out of games. And when he fouls out of a game, we were forced to put guys like Cantor in there. With Zeller's injury history, God forbid he gets hurt, and then we're forced to put in a Marquise Chris in a situation like that, or even go small with Nance, and then your forward position, your backup bigs are all out of flux. I don't know. For me, if he can clean up the fouls, I really am excited for what Nurk's going to bring, and I'm glad he bought into it. Yeah. There's another player I want to talk to you about in regards to their role that I listened to the interview and I was excited for, and I really, really, really hope that this is what's going to come to be. And we've been talking about it pod after pod. But Anthony Simons, we talked about, his improvements that he's been working on throughout the offseason and what they want to change. We already know the guy can shoot. 70% of his attempts came from three. He shot high, not high, but mid 40s, low 40s. Very efficient behind the three-point line. That's great, man. You can shoot. The problem with him has always been A, his defense, and B, everything else on offense. The playmaking, which has gotten better and better and better, and the ability to attack the rim. Well, guess what? He said he wanted to improve on what he's been working on. Playmaking and attacking the rim.
Yep.
Huge.
Yep.
Huge.
Yeah. We're going to need him. I mean, I hope he can do it. I'm not 100% sure because we've never seen him expand his game a whole lot. I mean, with Amph, it's always been really good, deadly three-point shooting and amazing. When he dunks, it's amazing, right? The athleticism is unbelievable. But I don't know if he's going to improve, and I don't know if he's going to get a whole lot better. So I agree with you. We are very dependent upon Anthony Simons getting better because he's going to have to play minutes this year, and he's going to have to be a scorer off the bench. I'm just not 100% sold yet on his words and meeting his actions too.
Well, I agreed. It's going to be tough to trust. I mean, I think a lot of it played with Melo last year, and Melo was the focal point on offense. So when he came in, he had a couple moments where he was able to shine, but a lot of it was just pass to Melo and see what he can do. Run around, try to hit a three. Yeah, I really hope that this is the year that he can come in and run the offense. We need a point guard. Yep. We need another point guard. I think gone are the days, maybe not gone completely, but I doubt we see as much Dame and CJ splitting time with the starting unit. A lot of times we talk about Stott's rotation where CJ really kind of came in and played point guard in the bench. I don't think Chauncey wants to do as much of that. I really think maybe he does. I don't know. But I really think they're going to rely on Anthony to come in and be the point guard. He doesn't have to put up 9-10 assists a game. I don't care if he's a pass-first point guard. I'd rather him not be. I'd rather him utilize his scoring to draw guys in and kick out to the Schnells and the McLemores of the world. And I think with him and Nance, if Anthony can become the guy that we want him to be, I think you'll have one of the better 1-2 punches in the league off your bench with ball movement, athleticism. And then you throw in a guy like Little and you throw in Zeller. I mean, they're fine, but Amp is going to be the biggest thing for me. His leap this year, which, by the way, is his fourth year, and is going to determine whether or not we're going to give him an option and keep him. We probably will.
Good call.
But I really think that this is his year that he's got to show up. And if he doesn't show up, this team is going to hurt. Yeah. So I like that he talked about that. I like that he said, you know what, I can shoot from three. That's great, but I'm going to try to attack the rim more. He's bulked up a bit. If you saw him in the interview, if anybody's seen a picture of him lately, dude's got some weight on him now in a good way. I really think that'll help him. I don't think he's ever going to be a great defender, but he has the athleticism to make up for some mistakes. And if he can put that together, then great. But the offensive stuff that he talked about is really intriguing to me. So happy to hear that from him. Good. We'll talk more in the preseason show that we'll do here in a couple of weeks. But that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, and what did you make of the Dame comments? There was nothing I really took out of that. What did you have out of that one?
So the Dame stuff really kind of caps. It was more so that we capped a lot of, I don't want to call it questions, but it's like a good TV show that's been on for 5 seasons. They finally kind of ended it well.
Yeah.
Without leaving it too many cliffhangers. So one of the things that he says he likes the roster.
Okay.
Again, not sure how much I actually believe that. What is he supposed to say? Yeah, I'm not happy with the moves that we made. McLemore, really? I mean, of course he's not going to come out and say that stuff, but he does seem excited. He specifically said he's excited for Nance, and that's great to see because I think we're all excited for Nance. I watched his press conference. I love the drive that he comes in to want to get back to the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. He said all the right things, but he has a great personality. Wasn't BS in his answers. So for Dame, it's good to have another guy like that you can have off the bench. It's going to be a team player. I'm glad he's happy with the roster. Again, right now, I wouldn't take anything that Dame says for a grain of salt or whatever the term
Yes.
is. Because
Yep.
with Dame, it's going to be, of course, he's not going to come out and be like, yeah, I'm not happy. He came out again. He said that he never said any of the things that were reported in the offseason. Never said he wanted to be traded. Never said he was doing the. What is he supposed to say? We talked about this before. Was he going to come out? Yeah, actually, I was really unhappy. I was hoping to, I talked about wanting to be traded. No, man, he's not going to come out and say that stuff. But I do at least like that he addressed it. I mean, granted, it was a question that was asked to him, but he still was pretty honest with it. He said that he's happy to compete. He still won't fully commit, but I wouldn't commit anymore. After what happened with Aldridge, nobody's going to come out and be like, I want to be the best player ever. I'm never going to leave. Because if something happens and you get unhappy in 2 years, you don't want the disgruntled vibe that Aldridge left with you, right? I mean, it's just not it. But I think he's bought in for this season. I think he's bought in for seasons upcoming. I don't think he wants to go anywhere right now. He's going to give Chauncey a chance. He understands that unless you trade CJ, there's really no moves to make. So he's probably happy with some of the guys that Neil's bringing in because what else are you going to do right now? And he obviously likes the Nance trade. He thinks that was one of the moves that they could make, and it does improve the team. So he's got to be thrilled about that.
Yeah, I'm with that.
The other big thing that he said, really just kind of the last thing I noticed, was he was talking about his experience with Team USA again and how he was good friends with Draymond. And this is the one concerning bit that I have that goes somewhat against everything that he said, that I just said he said just a minute ago. And that was, he really likes to hear about all the championships that everybody had. He was talking about, all these guys saying that they won this and how they won this and, listening about playing with Curry, and he knows that you can't go out and get Kevin Durant and these guys, but he also knows that these guys have been playing together. They're winning championships. And I think being around that, that's what gets that clock ticking. And that's what starts those rumors. He probably did say, oh, yeah, man, I would love to win. It'd be so cool to go play with somebody else. That's probably where those rumors come from that got reported in the offseason, because he is around these guys. They are having these discussions, and he wants that. He tells them all the time that he wants to win in Portland, that he wants to do it here. But deep down, I mean, it's hard to be around those guys. Like you brought it up, just that it was going to be tough on him anyway as he gets more and more popular. But that was a concern for me. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of concerns. I mean, I do think that Chauncey's going to have his chance here. If they come out and they are just absolutely blazing and they're top 5 seed and everything's going great, I think everything's going to be fine for Dame. He's going to chill. I do understand the concern about playing around Draymond and all these guys, KD, and all these guys who have championships and saying, I want to be. Dame has been around all-stars and he's been around Olympic teams. Now he's played for Coach Kerr and Coach Pop. I mean, he's been around the block now to the point where he kind of knows what he wants. But I think the fresh voice in Chauncey, and I do think that Larry Nance is going to be a big addition to this team. I think Zeller, Snell, McElmore, there's some professionals on this team that are going to make it a little tougher. Plus, Norm came out today and basically said, or yesterday, and came out and said, I feel really comfortable with this team and feel really good about building where I'm at in my role. So I think this is going to be the best team we've seen in a while. And I'm not as worried about Dame anymore. I knew he would lock in once the season got closer. So I'm ready to roll with Dame.
All right. That sounds good to me. I mean, I hope so. I think we bought some time for sure with the Chauncey stuff, and they like what they're hearing in practice and all that good stuff. Time will tell. I mean, we'll talk about this in a few weeks, I'm sure, as the season begins. We're in a losing streak or a winning streak where guys' heads are at. I'll give you all that, but I don't have anything else to add. I mean, that was kind of it. It was just nice to see him cap up, say he's not mad at the roster, address the concerns, and move on from it, and ready to start the season.
Yep, and it was good to hear. Next episode, we are going to talk about the December schedule a little bit. We didn't get to that this week because of how much we had to cover with media. And the other thing we're going to talk about is preseason. We're going to start doing some more of our preseason breakdown, camp breakdown. So that's what's coming up next. Please like, sub, and follow along. Follow us on Twitter at TalkRip. We are always excited to get down with fan questions. So if you want to DM us something, that's totally fine. Anything else you want to hit today, man?
No, that's about it. We do have a special guest probably upcoming, a guy that you guys will probably know. I know. Well, I'm not going to say anything because I keep saying this and then things have fallen through. But I think this one's going to work out in about 2 weeks. We're hoping to record Sunday, the October 17th. We'll probably do another episode between then just for fun. But that episode should be pretty cool. You guys will probably know who it is. I'll give you a hint. It's most likely going to be another Blazers Edge. Blazers Edge media head.
Yep.
We're pretty stoked about that. Share with your friends. Get some subs on here for us. If we get to 500 subs, you can win tickets. We're going to give stuff away. I'm still planning on giving away tickets to the Celtics game eventually. We'll probably focus on that in November. But we're definitely going to give tickets away to whatever game happens to come after we hit 500 subs. So spread the word around if you guys enjoy us. We appreciate every single week that we come on here and do this. We're going to be more on a regular schedule, getting back to Sundays as the season starts. We actually have more content to report. So we thank you guys. Like, sub, follow on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And we'll continue to give you guys the content that we do our best to provide.
Yep. We appreciate everybody. And just like that, we out.
We out.
Deuces.